Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started on some stuff with the 79. I was asked, by, I don't even remember what parts online category, store, or whatever, about my project car, whatever, and it asked for a nickname. And I hadn't given it a nickname, but we have two Cougars, 67 and an 88. We have the Chevy, we have Clifford, the big red Dodge, and so it's like, well, I don't know, it's just the 79. And okay, well, that's what it is. It's the 79. That'll be okay. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get, I have a new ignition switch right here. There, oh, that's backwards. It's the part number is US70L, and looks very similar to what I pulled out, with the exception of, look, sticks. Didn't have that for the other ringer with the 79, so that made that tough. Anyway, I'm going to do that. So when we get out to the car, I will hit this again. We'll start over and put this. You got to take the steering wheel off, and I'll tell you about that and why. To get this out and do it all, and we will do that. We will put this new ignition switch into the 79, and we'll talk about some more stuff that's going on with it. And I've got some other stuff I want to talk about too. So, okay, see you in a Okay, here we are. We're inside the 79 now. You can see that, the headliner is low profile. That's what I would call it. Low profile. Kind of hanging down a little bit. It's not my go-to look, but so we're going to replace that. One thing at a time, though. First, we want to get the steering wheel. We need to get it off. I was told that, through YouTube's, that taking the ignition switch off, there's a small post at the base of the ignition switch on the column, and you put it in the run position, put a small screwdriver or a pick up in there, mash the little post, and then you can just pull out the ignition switch. That little hole is not there. So I'm going to take the steering wheel off, and we will go from there. We'll get the ignition out, and then we'll put in the new one, which I have right here. So we're going to do that. And so to get that out, I know that there's two Phillips screwdrivers. There's Phillips screws around the back side of the steering, right there, and right there. And so I'll take those two out, remove the horn and faceplate, and then I'll show you what goes from there. Okay, hang on. I don't think you want to watch me turn screws and nuts and bolts and stuff, but we'll talk. Okay. Got the faceplate off. The horn, hooks up with those two, electric connectors right in down here. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take the steering wheel off. I have, you can rent tools at O'Reilly's or other places like that, wheel pullers, things like that. But I've done enough steering wheels to know that all you need is this. So I had to get these spacers because this is a little deeper than the 67 Cougar. I haven't ever taken off one on the 88 Cougar, but the 67, I took it off a time or two. So I had screws set up for that, but this is deeper. So I had to get longer bolts, and then I had to get spacers. I didn't have a whole selection of longer bolts, but the ones, anyway, here we are. I'm going to go ahead and get the center nut out, and then pull the wheel, and we will go from there. Hang on. Okay, I got the center nut out, and there's the situation. You got the center bolt, and then these two holes out in here, and that's where your bolts with the spacers will go, right inside those. Now the spacers need to come on the outside, so we won't set that in there until we have our bracket set up in there. So anyway, okay, I'm ready to take the wheel off. Hang on. Okay, the wheel is off. Right there it sits. I got to tell you, I'd set the bolts in place right in there. I screwed them inside here, and I was tightening this down just like this, and I thought the threads had stripped on the centerpiece right here. It was turning so easy. I thought, well, what has happened now? It's just a nut with a loop through it. And then I looked, and the steering wheel was coming off. Now, I've taken off a steering wheel or two in my lifetime, and I felt zero resistance. I thought the center deal was stripped or something like that, but then the wheel came straight off. Boy, kind of lucky in that regard. So anyway, now, I'm going to get in. I'll show you where the little post is. I found it. After I got that off, I found the little post, where you depress it, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. Hang on one second. Okay, I was able to get that out. I had to use needle nose pliers and a large screwdriver, hence this screwdriver, which broke off the front, the pad portion of the ignition switch. And as you can see, I will try and get it small enough. Yeah, let's see, where is it? Here we go. This is the tool I used way back in here. Way back in here is where the post goes. Not out here where everybody on YouTube was telling me it is. This is where it's at, way back in here. So a little different, and I don't know if that's 79 specific or what, but now I'm a little curious of how and then I use these needle nose pliers to actually pull out the ignition, and it came out fairly quickly. But anyway, I'm going to give it a try right now to put this in. I will be right back with you, and then we'll talk some more about some stuff that's going on. Okay, we do have keys, and it appears to work. Even the release works properly. Okay, I am going to get the steering wheel back on, and we will be back. Yeah, hey, a job well done. Yeah, it worked out. I don't believe it. But as Derek Berry says, I got it when I'm looking right at it. Okay, all right, we'll see you in a bit. Okay, I do want to point out a couple of things. I almost forgot to put in this. I believe it's the noise maker when the keys are in it. Or ding, 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 whatever this LTD2 made when the keys were left in, your doors stand open. And this piece, just right out here. So I had to take out these screws and this screws, to get the ignition sticks in. And this never wants to go back in the way I remember it coming out. It only wants to go back in the way it's supposed to be. So those were in. They were stopping me from putting the wheel back on. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm just going to pause, and we'll be right back. Okay, the 1-inch ratchet socket, got that on there. Now I have to rehook up these wires for the horn and put the faceplate back on, and then that will be done. Now, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but the other thing is, this car is, basically all original, and I am going to do one upgrade that I can think of right off the top of my head, and that's the wiring harness I'm going to put in. It comes with a fuse box and everything, so I'm going to be taking out the carpet. I'm going to be taking out the center console, the shift lever. This is pretty much the same as the 67. I've got to put this back on. Shift lever, basic anyway. So I've got to take the seats out, the center console, the back seats, rip the carpet out, and that entails taking out the seal plates, the side panels, getting all that out, and taking the carpet out. I will probably do that. I'll probably order the harness tomorrow, and then starting work on this. I've got this covered because there's this crack, and I don't want that getting worse. I'm going to see what I can do to just mask that and kind of fix it in that regard, masking it instead of replacing it. In the rewire, I'll probably take the entire dash off, which will mean taking this wheel off again, and all that. So here we go. This is this right now is turning into a project. Not a problem, a project. And figuring out taking the center console out, that's probably going to be decently easy. It was with a Cougar, and I don't know that Ford and Mercury changed a whole lot in securing those down. But if they did, I'll be able to figure it out, I think. So, okay, well, thanks for watching, guys. And I'm going to, here shortly, I'm going to give you another video on the What Car Show coming up this September 12th, 2026, from 12 to 3, 300 block of Linden in Wahoo. We're going to show you some things we've been doing and getting it kind of exciting. So, okay, see you in a bit.